Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tubby Talk, the show where I, Terry from Terry Leahy Films, and the boys from Tubby Robot, Chris and Steve,
Hey!
do a lot of talking about gaming. So this week we decided to talk about that little pink puffball himself, Kirby. I'm a big fan of the Kirby games. He just keeps coming. He's been there since the beginning of Nintendo. Steve, however, is not the biggest Kirby aficionado, so we thought we'd do things a little differently this time.
Is Kirby the little pink puffball with like big eyes?
Yes.
And he makes other Pokemon fall asleep?
How dare you? It's not Jigglypuff.
Jigglypuff, I'm sorry. No. I know who Kirby is. I've played half a Kirby game.
Okay.
The original Game Boy one.
That's a great one to start with.
Well, I think it was original with the Animal Friends.
No, that's 2.
Yeah, that was 2, okay. So I played Kirby 2, but that was on Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I played that at halfway through, so I know that.
Yeah.
Half
That's
of
about it. Yeah.
And that's about it. So we figured we would turn to Steve for some hard-hitting questions about our favorite little vacuum cleaner mascot himself, and kind of let Steve take the wheel.
Thank you. Let me just get out my notes. And so first question. I know it's a little unorthodox, but I'll hit you with it because it'll be interesting television or podcasting.
Or both.
Question number 1, fellas. Is Metaknight a Kirby?
So the first thing we should probably do is define what Metaknight is. So Metaknight is an enemy that you encounter, I believe, in every Kirby game.
No, I think he only started in Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo. I think that's his first appearance.
Definitely an adventure.
Okay, in Adventure.
Because
that's his first appearance.
Yeah, because there's a thing that's pointing that says pick up the sword, so you can have a sword fight with this
He's
thing.
absolutely not in Kirby's Dreamland. And I don't think he's in Dreamland 2. But
Okay.
Kirby's Adventure on the NES, which is his first NES outing. His first console outing, because he started on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy.
That's right.
Yep.
So no, wait a minute.
Yeah, his first game was Kirby's Dreamland on the Game Boy.
It was Hudson Soft.
Kirby himself, not Metaknight.
Correct.
Kirby.
Oh, okay.
Kirby himself.
Developed by Hudson Soft?
No, by HAL Laboratories.
Hal. I knew it was an H. See? That's how little I know Kirby. I'll keep it.
But there was this other creature who had these big old bat wings and a mask and a sword that would fight you, and that's who Metaknight is. And he was just recently in Smash Brothers Brawl, right?
And he was in Brawl and Smash 4 as well.
Brawl and Smash 4. So that's where a lot of people were kind of exposed to him, I'm sure, as well, if you weren't directly involved.
Like me, except for like images in Nintendo Power of seeing Metaknight. Kirby's like a round puffball. He has round puffball feet and little like stubby puffball arms. Metaknight has little round puffball feet, is round, and has bat wings and holds a sword with, I believe, little puffball arms. But he also has like a metal mask on his face with like evil like backlit eyes sticking up.
Yeah.
So to me, he looks like a Kirby with a metal mask and bat wings.
I think that would be an awesome backstory. I don't think anywhere in the Kirby series do we see another Kirby creature. There's no creature that looks like Kirby. He's like one of a kind. And I always kind of fought with myself over whether he was related to DDD. Because DDD has a very similar moveset in the first game, at least. Like, he can inhale, he can fly with his fat body. But
With his fat penguin body.
yeah, but you typically assume to be a penguin.
Yeah.
So Metaknight, I think it might be a sort of like, one day on the final episode of Kirby, Metaknight will remove his mask, and he will find out that it is another Kirby. The perhaps Kirby's father, or perhaps Kirby's sibling?
Or Kirby from an alternate future that was destroyed.
Yes! Oh, alternate future Kirby! Metaknight is alternate future Kirby. That's canon.
You heard it here first.
That's canon.
Yeah.
I think he is a Kirby. I think Kirby's defined as a Star Warrior.
Oh, okay.
So I think he is. They have the same body type, and the first time you ever see him, you actually see him without the mask, and he looks just like a blue Kirby.
Oh.
Like, he looks very similar, and I don't think the wings are in his first appearance. So maybe
He's
definitely
definitely
got
got
the
soul
cape.
to the
He
devil. He
definitely
gets
has
bitten
the
by
cape.
a vampire, maybe?
Yeah, could be
Vampire Kirby?
Yeah. Well, he's blue instead of pink, so I do think he is another Star Warrior that something happened to.
Oh.
Because we also don't know if he's good or bad.
Oh,
He's
really?
similar to Proto Man.
He's an antagonist, but he's not necessarily a villain.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes he is a straight up antagonist, but sometimes he's like on your team.
Oh.
And I don't know. I like to think that he's on your side and that he's like your brother that you'll find
Watching
about
over
years
you.
later. Yeah.
I like that backstory for him.
But there are other Kirbys, but I think they're only featured once.
Okay.
and I think it's at the end of the original Kirby's Dreamland. There's other Kirby's jumping.
Are there really? I think
You
you're.
remember?
Yeah, I think you're. That's like the only place though.
Right.
And it's also up to debate though, because at the end of every level of Kirby, he splits into 3 versions of himself and does a
True.
dance. So maybe he just split into a whole crowd of himself to cheer for himself, because he's been doing that all game. Like he does the Naruto technique, and he just makes shadow clones. And
Wait, does he actually put his hands together?
He does not actually put his hands. Well, he does a dance.
Oh, the rolling flippy dance. Well,
Yeah.
We have to learn that, by the way.
oh wow! So that brings to mind a new question.
Lay it on.
This wasn't in my original notes, so I'm gonna have to revise this notes for later. So what year did Kirby come out?
It's like 1992.
So it was in the
wasn't
90s?
earlier than that. It might have been late 80s.
Well, it's Game Boy. Game
It's
Boy
Game Boy.
wasn't out in the
And
80s.
to 89, I think it came out.
Game Boy
In
was
Japan,
89?
at least, I think it was 88 or 89.
I'm feeling 90, 91.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, if
Pokemon
he
was
wasn't
92.
a launch title, he's damn close.
Okay. So he's a puffball. He likes to inhale and eat things. He does a dance, like silly dance every now and then. He can split himself into multiples if he chooses. So, is Kirby actually Majin Buu?
No, but people have said that many times, and I think
Because I was thinking if
there
Kirby
was
Majin
a-
came out first,
I think there was a death battle between Kirby and Boo.
oh wow,
Not when he gets like Super Boo or anything. When he
Yeah,
gets,
just
jacked,
like normal
but
fat
like the
Boo.
normal fat one, yeah. Because that's what I'm thinking. They're both similar in shape, and they both do similar things. They're both pink. They're both silly, and they're both like.
I bet
those
they're
valuable.
both based off of something in Japan that we don't know about.
Maybe.
For those of who don't know what Majin Buu is, who haven't watched Dragon Ball, he's a villain in the Dragon Ball series who is a big pink puffball who eats people.
With a stem.
Yes.
Yeah, so
He
that's one
turns
major
them into
difference.
candy.
Yeah.
Whereas Kirby straight up eats you.
Yeah, he just sort of inhales you whole bodily and then assumes your form.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. Not only he would win because he would eat him and then take his powers and then.
But then
he'd
he
have
would
the
just
powers.
become a pinker, puffy ball.
He'd get pants.
He'd get a little antenna on his head.
We gotta make this happen.
So then that leaves me
Any
to
of you kid artists at home, go ahead and
send in fan art to
There you
Sucker
go.
Robot.
there you go.
So then, sorry, one last question. Leads me to my
Keep going.
original second question. What happens after Kirby eats someone? Is he just like using the entirety of their being and energy, including their soul, and absorbing all of it so there's no waste? Or does he just poop at the end of the level somewhere and you don't see it?
Oh, that's a good
There
question.
is waste because he spits a star out if he. Well, he didn't eat you if a star comes.
Right,
out.
and he can spit you out without assuming your form, and then it's a star. But if you press select, you can throw the power away, and then the star bounces out like
Oh, okay.
a star poop.
Oh, okay.
And then some of them, if he eats them and nothing's there, they do just die. They turn into nothing, and it says at the bottom of the screen, nothing.
Oh yeah,
And
it
it makes
does.
a little screen.
That's nihilistic.
So I guess he does kill. So Kirby's a
Okay.
killer. Kirby is a killer
So-
sometimes.
the Kirby just has like a black hole inside of him and just like utterly annihilates any matter he absorbs.
Yeah.
Probably because he is.
If he so chooses.
Well, he is a space creature. Like he is kind of an alien and has something to do with stars.
Oh, okay.
So having power over a black hole.
He's just a barely contained black hole, and he just opens his mouth to let that black hole out a little bit, sucks you in.
Either that or he's shunting to an alternate dimension, aka where the Hulk gets his mass from when he transforms.
Also, he has another thing he can do, which he can in the later games. I think this started on Kirby Superstar for Super Nintendo. He can create. He can kind of absorb the evil that's in somebody and create a buddy who's then
Oh,
on
wow.
your side.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
he can also mind wipe people
Yes.
and make them his slaves. Good God, Kirby's a monster.
Kirby's one of the evilest beings in the Nintendo universe. That's for sure. He's a glutton. He doesn't care about anyone but himself.
Right.
Isn't he always saving his willing creature friends, or is he just saving
No,
his home?
he's really just saving his home, and he just gets mad when his food gets taken away. Usually, like, the game starts and, like, Kirby was eating breakfast, but then King Dedede stole his breakfast, and Kirby's like, I'm gonna eat the heck out of you. Yeah.
Or also he's just sleeping at
Yes.
the beginning and the end of each one.
That's true.
It is called Dreamland. Like that's his domain. Maybe Kirby's a figment of our dreams.
Yeah.
The things that maybe when you don't have a dream, it's because Kirby ate it all.
Dream Eater.
I mean, there's a lot of credence to that because in the latest Pokemon generation, there's a Pokemon. No, second latest, I think X and Y. There's a Pokemon that's basically a little pink creature that dreams, and all of his attacks are like attacks from within the dream world.
There's also an attack
maybe
in
there is
Pokemon.
Sense. I mean, they would have crossover, wouldn't they?
Yeah, so maybe there is some sort of like folklore-based source for Kirby and his.
And there's more Pokemon crossover because there is a move that many Pokemon have called Dream Eater, which is an attack you use on someone who's fallen asleep. And it hurts them a lot because you can only use it when they're asleep. So maybe Kirby's a Dream Eater? This is terrifying, actually. The deeper we get.
I'm sorry for.
I like how
Because
dark
granted,
this
it's
one got.
nihilistic, like dark.
We're talking
hole
about
of-
like the cutest creature in the world, and it got very dark very fast.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
My final question, at least for now, and then you guys can talk about some of the more interesting games in the series, because I would like to hear about some of these, except from Kirby 64, because I heard that was garbage. My last and final question: who would win? No, actually, no. Scratch that. New question. It was just recently revealed a few weeks ago that King DDD has no hair
Oh.
under the crown. He's just bald.
Yeah.
They probably never revealed it, but in a recent game, somebody data mined some of the models and noticed that he had nothing. He was just bald.
Yeah.
As you know, he's a big penguin, so you would think he'd be bald, but
Yeah.
now you have proof.
And where's a hat?
Okay.
Yeah, he wears a hat. So now my question is he bald naturally, or did he just lose all of his hair and he's very self-conscious about it, so he wears a crown? Is he actually a king? What is he king of?
Well, I think the supposition is that all the enemies in the first Dreamland games are his minions. Like Waddle Dee and Waddle Doo are the minions of King DDD. This is getting upsetting.
with these terrifying names.
The Poppy Brothers, Poppy Brother Jr., Poppy Brother Sr.
Oh my god.
The list just keeps going.
A walrus.
A walrus. I think the idea is kind of like a Bowser scenario where he's got a castle and he's got minions in his castle. So I think he's a king, maybe a tyrant, a self-imposed, ruler of some kind. But
Yeah, I think he was a king somewhere else and invaded Dreamland to try and be king there as well.
that sounds right.
But Kirby said, "Well, this is interrupting breakfast, so I guess I'm gonna kill everyone."
And yet, when it comes to the hair thing, I don't think he was ever had hair. Very few things in Kirby have hair at all. It's not really a common attribute for any of the creatures.
I mean, the
I'm
tree
trying to
guy,
think
the
of
tree
one.
guy has hair.
He's got branches.
Wispy
And
Woods?
leaves.
Leaves.
Yeah.
That's not hair. It's branches and leaves.
He's an anthropomorphic tree, so therefore the leaves are his hair.
He's always has
Well,
to
really, is a tree with a face
be. Yeah.
True.
because he doesn't even have arms. He just spits apples at you.
And he's
Or does
always,
he drop them?
They drop, and
And
he
he
shoots.
spits
He
wa-
spits like wind at you.
So, what we're talking about is Wispy Woods, the first level ever in a Kirby game, right?
Yep.
Does it
That's the
recur in
initial-
other games? 'Cause I thought it was
Yes. He's
Okay.
he's the boss of the first level of like half of the Kirby games.
I know he's a stage in Smash Brothers, the last couple of installations.
Yeah.
Yeah, for good reason. I mean, it's a good introduction to how everything works. If we want to talk about like gameplay, Kirby, the thing he can do that is different than most other side scrollers, especially in that era, is he could fly infinitely.
Yeah, he just flies.
Now, there's a top of the screen, obviously, that he can't go past, but if you wanted to, you could just go up there and fly across the whole thing
okay.
until, level design forces you to go into a tunnel. There's also caves, there's underwater stuff, and the underwater is actually a lot of fun in Kirby because you can go in every direction and have an attack,
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
which is rare for a Nintendo game to give you that ability.
Yeah, you don't feel powerless the way you do in like Mario games and games like that where your mobility is limited, you're slower. Like Kirby zips through the water and can shoot in 4 directions
Oh, nice.
underwater, which is cool.
And originally, he didn't have his copy ability. That was brought in the
Really?
second game.
Oh, okay.
In the first game, there is no copy ability, but he can eat certain things, right?
Yeah, he swallows them and they're gone in that game.
But he can also get power-ups.
No, there's no power-ups in the first game.
Really?
The only power-up is the
There's
magic
not the-
candy that gives you invincibility. Really,
What
otherwise...
about the hot food where he shoots fireballs? Isn't that in the first one?
Yeah, there's hot food, but it's like a temporary thing.
Yeah. You don't get it for the whole time.
And there is another one, there is the mint would make you infinitely fly and puff, so you could just keep puffing for
That's right.
for the kind of shooter stages, the shmups.
Okay.
There's stages where it's just like Kirby flies around and it's Gradius all of a sudden.
What was that
Easy
word?
Gradius.
What was that word you just used?
Shmup.
What is that?
Shoot 'em up.
It's a shortened term for shoot 'em up games.
But specifically the vertical or horizontal, like spaceship or airplane shooters, as opposed to like a shoot 'em up
Yeah.
long form, which could be like
first
action
person.
game, first person or third person action game with a gun.
Yeah.
The shmups are like the Raiden style games or 1942 style games.
Yeah, that's a shmup.
Huh.
We play those a lot here.
And today we learned a new thing. So after the first game, Kirby's Dream Land, he was also white
Yep.
in that game too, right on the box art too.
Oh.
It's not a thing that's made up. And in the commercial, do you remember the commercial?
I do.
Can you describe it?
I remember most vividly the line, "He's one tough cream puff."
So the commercial was, you saw, it said, here's Kirby, and it's this adorable little white thing waving high. And it's like, and here's some action hero, and it's this souped up, jacked guy, super 80s looking, Arnold Schwarzenegger looking dude with long black hair. And then it cut back to Kirby, and it's like, what are you going to do against me? And then Kirby eats him. And oddly enough, when they come back to him, he's got the glasses on and the hair. So I think they were showing that eventually he'd be able to do the copy move. So he did copy in the commercial, but he did not do it in the game. But soon, he would.
Yes.
And that became his like one of his defining traits.
Painted pink. He had pink skin from then on, and also now had a copy ability, and that was in Kirby's Adventure, right?
Yeah, Kirby's Adventure brought all that in.
Was that the one with the enemies that were like puffballs with giant eyeballs?
No, it was like, there were puffballs with giant eyeballs.
I mean, but were they in the first game or were they? Cause
Yeah.
A lot of the enemies
Kracko.
were, yeah, he was in the first game. A lot of the things were pulled directly from the first game, but there's a lot more. They had new bosses, Mr. Sun and Mr. Moon. I forget.
That's
their
right.
called. They were tough. They were like one of the first tough bosses in Kirby at
Yeah,
all.
and well, these guys were in Dreamland, but Lolo and Lala from
Yeah.
the Lolo series.
Lo and La La La.
Excuse me.
Because they were the minions of DDD. There's got to be 3 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's who they were. In the
Yeah,
first
they looked identical. The sprites were identical to Lolo and Lala.
Lula Lila?
No. But they
Metal
were
Gear
they
Solid
pulled a lot.
reference.
Yeah, and that was the first game that really brought all the mythos together. It's-
In addition, that was the first game I remember with that many power-ups. Like, I don't remember a game that had... I'm coming off of Mario, so you got 3 things. You know, you got your mushroom, you got your flower, and then depending on what you're playing, you either got a leaf or you got a feather, right? And then in Kirby, it was like, there's 50 of these things. And in the later stages, it just kept getting cooler, more and more stuff. It wasn't like, there's a beam in every level. No, at the one at the end, there's one you can get that's a UFO, where Kirby turns into a UFO, flies around, and has 5 new attacks that he can use, like a charge shot, another beam, which is kind of funny that I just said that, and just like basic shots. And it's the coolest one to get, so I would always flip out whenever I saw
Wait,
it.
which game was this?
This is Kirby's Adventure.
It was on the
NES.
NES.
I need to play this game. This sounds like a blast.
Yeah, you really do.
I
You really
I think what
do.
happened is I played Kirby's Dream Land 2, and I was like, this is cute, but it seemed very much, probably I was like 12, and I was like, this is a kid's game.
I've recently
Play
played Kirby's Dream Land 2 for the first time on Virtual Console, and I thought it was sort of dull, actually.
Okay, so it wasn't
Compared
just
to,
me as a kid.
I like Kirby's Dream Land 1 better, and I like Adventure better,
Okay.
and I mean Superstar.
So it's just a bad one for me to try to dig into.
Yeah.
I think so, and that's where the mythos changed a little bit too, and that there were animal pals.
Yeah.
So there was a cat and an owl,
And a slime, I believe.
It was
it
an
a slime?
owl and a fish,
fish.
and it was Ku, Kine. What was the third
No
one?
way you're gonna be able to do this.
There were lots of articles about it recently.
He was a hamster, Rick the hamster.
Rick the
Rick,
Hamster.
Rick,
Ku,
yeah.
Kine, and Rick. There we go.
What? Why Rick?
Combo breaker.
Yeah,
Why Kai or Ku?
Yeah, but the cool thing about that though is they, again, which I love, is when they lean into the powers, and that now if you get a fire guy, you have one shot, but if you have a fire guy and Rick, you have a different move. If you have a fire guy and Kine, you have a different move, which I think was nothing.
Yeah, it was
or maybe
like-
he had a light.
It was like, multiplicative. Like every power could be branched, which
Yeah.
was really cool.
To me, when I was a kid, that was my favorite thing, was that in my head there were all these different combinations. I distinctly remember talking with my buddy Chris about all the different things that should be in the game, like different powers, and if they combine with this and that and what it should be, and like for hours, just like talking about what it could be. And it was so much fun. But the cool thing was the makers of Kirby had a little bit of humor with them as well. So there were some dud powers. Like there's one that if you take is just sleep, and literally he just takes a nap. And not for any good reason. Someone hits you and kills you. Like it's a trap.
One of my favorite ones that seems like a dud at first is the rock power.
Yeah.
You absorb a rock enemy and you just turn into it. Yeah, you just drop. But as you know from like Smash Brothers, that's a very potent attack.
Yes.
And if you're on a slope, he rolls. So like you can actually like hit that, fall off a slope, kill a bunch of enemies, hit a ramp, and you're just a rock the whole time.
Nice.
But if you have that same rock move and you have Rick the hamster, he'll like run on you and you'll be like a running wheel type thing, just knocking people out. So it was funny because there was like that move and then there was the other move, and it all happened when we got to Super Nintendo. On Super Nintendo, Kirby Superstar came out, as did Kirby's Dreamland 3. And each one kind of took a different path with how Kirby was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I prefer Superstar for sure. That's my favorite.
I think most
Kirby
people
game.
do.
Was that the one that had like multiple games?
It was like 9 games in one.
Okay.
And then really only 4 or 5 of them were like actual like narrative games, and the others were like side
And
challenges.
shootouts.
Yeah, shootouts. But a lot of that was just playfulness, playing with like the Kirby formula. Superstar was awesome for that.
But the greatest thing for me about Superstar was that it decided Kirby was going to be 2-player going forward.
Oh, nice.
In that you could make a buddy, and your buddy would have powers, the same powers, and like the same moves and
But it
everything.
wouldn't be Kirby, right? It was always like just another.
Yeah, you'd take over the bad guy.
Yeah, like the bad guy that Kirby ate, you would become player 2.
Oh.
So you could like say, hey, I want to be the cutter, so throw me away, eat a cutter. Yeah.
And it was so much fun, that game. And like some of them could fly and you could jump on, but the best one is there's a power called Wheel.
Yes,
And
Wheel
if
is
you-
awesome.
And if you got it, you could create a buddy named Wheelie, who was a motorcycle that Kirby could ride, and when he jumped on you, he got a little motorcycle helmet and could throw stars. I had so much fun with some friends of mine just tooling around on the wheel, just going as far as you could go, as fast as you could go.
Yeah, I remember that being kind of like Sonic-esque. Like it felt like a little bit of Sonic in a Kirby game. And one of my favorite things about that game is it had one of the best level titles of all time, The Great Cave Offensive.
Yeah.
Something about
So
that.
that's where that Smash Brothers.
That Smash Brothers level is directly ripped from the level of The Great Cave Offensive.
And believe
It's
me, by
awesome.
the end of it, you were offended that you were still looking for treasure.
Yes.
You could whip through it real quick, but to get all those treasures in that game, that's pretty tough.
Yeah. You didn't have to beat it, but, completionist.
But that game, Superstar, also had a Metaknight game that was so much fun, and it had one of my favorite things in video games, which is a way over-the-top dramatic ending with like a cartoon character. And it's just Kirby on the wheel going back, and there's this music playing, and the background behind him like getting darker. It's a lot like Mega Man just walking, but it's a Kirby just driving. He finally gets to the end and he pulls like this wicked cool e-brake kind of spin and parks his bike on the end. And I don't remember this or not, but I think a little Metaknight creature you can see in the background, like he survived. He still made it.
Oh, nice.
Because the end of that game, that he blows up his own ship, and you have to like get off on the wheel.
The Halberd.
That very nicely done. Very nice.
Well, yeah, and Meta Knight's ship was awesome. I mean, it was this giant spaceship, effectively, that had Meta Knight's face on the front of it. It was
The
really
mask.
Cool. Yep, the mask.
And there was also one with a giant bird.
Dynablade.
Yeah.
Dynablade. Yeah, that was that one. And there's also a Spring Breeze was the first one he usually played, which is almost like a remake of the first Kirby's Dream Land.
Except you had the new powers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you could do all sorts of different things. There was also a concept. I guess I gotta give a shout out to Hal.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things we love in Smash Brothers, I feel like started like with some of these Kirby games. Like Kirby had three distinct like fighter styles. So he could be a fighter, he could be judo, or he could be ninja. And these were all different types of moves, but they had a grab component where you could grab and do fun things. And so it turned into one of those games where it's like, let me just figure out the combination for how to do this, or I want to specifically judo this guy this way. It's one of the most imaginative series that I can think of.
And any power you got, if you hit start, it would show you the move list. So it would be like, up and B does this, down and B does that.
The game.
Yeah, and Kirby had a run where you could double tap to run, and your moveset would change accordingly, like as you were running. So you could do there's depth and breadth.
Yeah.
And as long as if I have this correctly, we have to thank for that the former president of Nintendo, Mr. Iwata.
Yeah,
That's right.
Who's worked at HAL Laboratories and kind of like stewarded Kirby into what he is today, and then Nintendo into what it is.
Maybe this doesn't make sense, but Superstar to me felt more American, and Dreamland 3 felt more Japanese as far as the way it was constructed. And 1 hit me, right in the goods. It was just kind of like, this is everything that I want, and that was in Superstar. And still, I have fond memories of that to this day. It might be my favorite Super Nintendo game.
Wow.
But there was this other one that give it a try. It's not the same, but I don't know if that's different, and I think I've been removed enough now that I might enjoy it on second play.
I watched a speedrunner do it, but that's very different than playing the game yourself. So yeah, I should give it a shot.
It also came out after Nintendo 64.
Yes.
So that's why a lot of people didn't really play it, because we were busy thinking about Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Which is where we're going next. That was the next appearance of Kirby. Would be in Super Smash Brothers for N64.
He's been in every Smash Brothers game ever since. Yeah, I mean, he has all of his iconic abilities in that game. Like, it's awesome. He can absorb any other character and steal their special move.
Yeah, which is
and looks like them.
Yeah.
Like,
he's Mario's cap. Or gets Luigi's cap.
Yes.
Or get Wario's cap.
Or Bayonetta's hair cone and glasses.
That's awesome.
If you
would have got Bayonetta's gun boots.
I think he might get gun boots when you eat her too. Like, it's pretty amazing.
I like when he had a Captain Falcon.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. That's kind of where I'm going. Steve, do you remember when somebody was playing as Kirby and got Captain Falcon?
Yes.
What they would do?
Falcon.
That's right. You got the Falcon Punch, and I don't think anything made me angrier than getting hit with a Kirby Falcon Punch, flying off the stage. Nothing could quell my soul because it just made me so angry. But the guy I played Smash Brothers with most, his name's Chris Mallard. Kirby was his character, and Fox was mine. So all I have in my mind.
But you don't get any sympathy from me. I was gonna already feel sorry for you, but you made Fox. So.
Come on. N64 Fox.
Yeah, this is original.
Okay.
Yeah, a little different. Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, and Smash Brothers seemed very informed by the Kirby decisions. Like the magic that is part of that game, I feel like was there, and it's obviously because it's the same designers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pull it all. I mean, you can feel the love, like what they refer to as the Nintendo polish, is all over those games. The Smash Brothers games, like in every animation, every detail, every background, every key press, like you feel like, oh, they thought of that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The fact that Kirby like mimics the people that he has absorbed in the Kirby voice, like the fact he goes punch, like.
Well,
so
and
good.
we also saw the same kind of animations for the stone that they used in Superstar came over, so that it wouldn't always be just a rock. Sometimes it's a giant stone dude.
Sometimes
like
it's a weight, sometimes it's thorns, like every time it's something different.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then Kirby 64 happened.
Kirby 64 happened.
All I know about this game is that it's constantly derided by fandom.
Yeah, I never played it actually. I know it's 2.5D, meaning that it's a 3D game with polygons, but it's side-scrolling based. So because it was on the N64, it's kind of ugly, like inherently.
Which is weird because, I mean, I wish they didn't go polygon with the
Yeah,
box.
if it had been 2D graphics, it would have probably been a lot prettier.
Yeah. But it's an interesting game. It's kind of, they did a new concept where you could mix powers. Like you would throw a fire power on top of an ice power and then you would get like a mixture type thing. But it's N64, so like it's not as clean, it's not as exciting. It just doesn't look as animated. Like I really enjoyed the fact that the originals looked a lot like a cartoon. Whereas this one was different. And you had this weird other character that was like an artist.
Yeah.
It's never been seen again.
I know her.
I don't know what it was.
I know her because there's a webcomic called Brawl in the Family. Have you ever seen that one?
I've heard of it.
Where it's all about the characters in Smash Brothers. And she is one of the main characters in it. And kind of like, you know, as a forgotten Kirby character. But it's a really cute comic and really well drawn. It ended like a year or two ago. But yeah, no, she shows up in fandom a lot.
Oh.
Well, she doesn't make sense. I don't know what she's doing.
Does she have like a little beret on and a paintbrush?
A beret and a paintbrush.
I think I've seen her before.
But the end of that game is a straight up Star Fox fighter, where you're like just trying to shoot this new creature that's taken over Dreamland. Different things have taken over Dreamland.
Yeah.
Even though we all think it's just DDD. Even in Adventure, it's this weird giant bat-like looking creature, I think. So maybe Metaknight was corrupted by this thing. Sorry, I can't keep that.
The Metaknight lore is deep.
It's true. But, you know, Kirby didn't stop, but I don't remember a GameCube entry.
There was Kirby's Air Ride.
Never played.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people
I've
played
heard of it.
It was delayed over. I think it was originally supposed to be an N64 game, and they kept pushing it back and kept pushing it back.
Was that the one that was like, it wasn't a Kirby like Diddy Kong racing style thing where you raced in planes, is it?
It's sort of like that, I think.
Except it was on Stars.
Yeah, it was on Stars. Definitely riding Stars. I didn't play it, so I don't know much about it. I know that it was little played. But on the GameCube, we did get Smash Brothers Melee.
That's
which
true.
Many people would consider the definitive Smash experience.
I certainly would.
Kirby was really good in that one. Really fun to play as.
So, when did he come back? Was he on the Wii?
He was on the Wii.
Yeah, and
There was a Kirby
3DS,
Wii?
I believe.
Yes, on the DS, on the 3DS.
That's where he came back.
I mean, he kind of went back to his handheld roots a little bit, but in weird games. I don't know if it was quite a launch title for the DS, but there was Kirby's Canvas Curse, which was a game you played entirely with the stylus. And Kirby was just a ball. He didn't have legs or arms.
Oh, wow.
You had to draw the path, and if he touched the path, he would be sucked in the direction of the lines you made.
Okay.
So you had to get your way. It was very unique.
So there was a version of that for the Wii, I think, right?
They made a sequel.
A sequel. Oh.
They made a sequel on the Wii U that was called Kirby. It was clay. The whole thing looked like clay, and it was the same. You know, I forget the name of it. But it was very neat. I'm playing through it right now with my daughter, actually.
Nice.
Really good. Like really interesting stylus-based gameplay.
Yeah, so it's about like trying to trace a path to like collect power-ups and avoid enemies and get through a stage.
Yeah, and
You know what's
surprisingly
interesting?
tough.
You know what's interesting about Kirby, though, and it's just hitting me now? He was one of the first characters to have a bunch of spin-off games.
Yeah.
Like, that were not adventure games. I specifically remember I owned, for some reason, Kirby's Dream Course.
That golf one.
That was supposed to
no,
be-
not the golf
that
one.
was
It's like
really
the
good.
fun. Is
Yes.
it the golf or was it
Yes,
Marble
golf.
Madness?
It was
Did you ever
golf.
Marble Madness style game where you had to kind of, or like,
No, there was that, too.
oh, okay.
There was also
The
one
first
for
one
the
was,
Game Boy Color where you had to move it.
Oh,
That's Kirby's Tilt and Tumble.
Tilt and Tumble.
So for the first one was Kirby's Pinball Land.
Right.
Which was a Game Boy pinball game. It was pretty straightforward. Then we had.
You know what? That might have been where he first went pink. Because
no,
came
he was
out
white in
before
that. I think.
Adventure.
I think he was.
Oh,
white
was
in
it?
that. I think he on the box art in America at least.
That's true.
I think in Japan and America there were different times because on the Game Boy you kind of made it up. Like, is he
Yeah.
white? Is he pink? It's all the same.
He's green.
Yeah. But Kirby Tilt and Tumble is interesting because it was motion controlled on the handheld.
It didn't have like an actual physical like gyroscope in the cartridge.
It did, and it was apparently one of the prototypes for the Wii Remote.
Oh,
Like
wow.
that was where they started messing around with that, and they kind of brought that back. Like, hey, this was fun and playful. Why don't we bring that back? Bakes a console around it.
Well, who was in charge? Iwata.
Yep.
So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But as far as getting back into adventure games, that wouldn't happen until we got into the DS world.
Sort of. I mean, there was in the Wii one of my favorite games, Kirby's Epic Yarn.
Oh,
I forgot about that.
Kirby's Epic Yarn was
I'm trying to
awesome.
remember the name, yeah.
It was strange. The whole aesthetic of the game was texture and yarn and fabric. And I remember very distinctly the intro to the game was one of my favorite lines in any video game ever, where Kirby is sucked into this fabric world and he lands on like a hill and he goes, "What is this? It feels like pants." What?
It feels like pants? Really?
Yes,
So,
it feels
was it
like pants.
Was it like a denim hill he was on?
Yeah, it was like a denim hill. It's like it feels like pants.
I think that came out right when I kind of Turned my back on gaming for a little while.
But it was interesting in that it was a side-scroller action game, 2-player. You teamed up with somebody named Prince Fluff, who looked a lot like Kirby, but he was yarn-based. And Kirby, because he was in this world, was made into yarn. So they looked the same, but Prince Fluff was blue and had like angrier eyes. And a crown, obviously.
Good.
Was it like askew on his head?
No, it was straight.
They missed an opportunity. You gotta give him like the Jughead style crown.
Yes.
Go with it.
But that game had no copy ability and it had no inhaling. The only thing you did was you whipped your yarn at people to grab things.
Yeah.
And pulled creatures apart. Like you would grab they would have a button eye and you grab their button eye and then they would just die.
Just unravel.
Evil.
And then you'd have a ball of yarn that you could toss at things. And there were still transformations in the game. Like there were certain areas where you would become a fire truck made of yarn and shoot out a yarn stream of water. Oh, it was a great game. Like just watching it's amazing.
Wasn't Yoshi also in a yarn adventure?
Yeah, no, Yoshi's Woolly World.
Yeah, it was
and I think there's a sequel for
on the
that.
Wii U.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on the Wii U, and it was very similar. Like, let's take this fabric, real aesthetic, and put it into a game. And that's one that I've been saving around to play with my wife. We've been sitting on it for 2 years. We'll get to it soon, though. But yeah, just watching those games, like, it's beautiful. Like, Kirby's Epic Yarn, the design alone is worth, like, if you like aesthetics at all, play the game. It's good. It's not too hard to find. And Wiis are everywhere. Everyone's got a Wii in their backyard.
Yeah. Why not?
And then there was a 3DS entry, which I've heard a lot about, and Chris's daughter was actually playing it, like, by herself, and it was awesome. Kirby and, it's called Kirby and Planet Robobot?
Yeah, Kirby in Planet Robobot. And that was very similar to Kirby's Adventure 2, to Kirby's Dreamland 2, in that there are, you get a robot, and when you're in the robot body, all your abilities are different.
Cool.
So it was that multiplicative thing again. So you can get fire, or if you get robot fire, you're a giant death-dealing robot. It's really awesome. Like, and the production values in these games just get better and better. Better animation, better music. It's beautiful.
And now we're at one of the newer ones, which has been out for a while by the time this is released. But yeah, it looks like they took the concept that I loved the most from Superstar and amplified it. And so instead of having one buddy, you could have 4. We don't really know that much about it. None of us have played it yet. But I watched a 15-minute intro, and man, does that magic look like it's still there. Like, everything that I liked. And I couldn't even imagine playing Kirby Superstar with 4 friends in the room, all sitting on, like, the floor, because that's what you did when you were a kid.
You know what you gotta play? There's another Wii one we skipped that you'd love. If you like that, Return to Dreamland. Have you played that?
No.
Kirby Return to Dreamland is your game. You gotta go play that. It's on the Wii. It is a classic Kirby game in every sense. It's got multiplayer. It's beautiful. It's in depth. It's got a story. I need to let you borrow that. Like,
What's the story?
So the story.
What's the story?
there's an alien creature comes to Dream World on a spaceship, and he's like, you gotta help me out. Like, there's this evil force is coming. It's jacking me up, and I'm gonna take you to my planet, and you're gonna help me fight it. And you go and you help him out, and then there's a twist. All kinds of crazy things happen from there.
It was Kirby all along.
It was Kirby all along. He was the
original
evil
Kirby.
force. He was the white Kirby came by, and it turns out it's a different Kirby. Evil
Whoa.
Kirby.
We should make that game where the original white Kirby was evil.
Yeah.
You can make it like, what was that movie where it started? There was like an evil Steamboat Willie style. Was that Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It was like a version of Steamboat Willie, but it wasn't quite, and it was like the black and white character came out, and
I think I read a book about that.
I remember visualizing something similar.
Are you thinking of Cool World?
Maybe it's Cool World. I've been seeing that movie in a while.
Oh god.
But no, but I'm just imagining
Kim Basinger?
just imagine like we make it like a Wreck-It Ralph style like Disney 3D movie.
He should be in Wreck-It Ralph, damn it.
Maybe he'll be in Wreck-It Ralph too.
Better be.
But I'm just imagining it starts off like somebody's playing Kirby's Dreamland, and he's a little like white puffball, and then Kirby just looks at the screen and it's like, this won't do, and he hops out of the game, and then somebody has to get Kirby from like all of his different iterations. You get the pink Kirby, you get the yarn Kirby, you get the all of his helpers and friends.
The clay Kirby.
Yeah, the clay Kirby. They come into the real world, and they help some little kids solve like the white Kirby conundrum, where he's like taking over the world. He's sucking up world leaders and becoming them.
Are you listening, Washington? Not Washington. Hollywood. Hollywood makes the games. Yeah.
Kirby appears to be a child's game, so I wanted to talk about kids' games and should there be kids' games and should adults play those kids' games? Because I feel like this is something we can all kind of comment on.
Well, to your second point, I agree. I think wholeheartedly that adults should play children's game because especially when growing up gaming like we have, it has that sense of nostalgia, especially when they're done right. But also, it helps to remember that gaming used to be a certain way, and it might have been more simple because you didn't have tutorials for 5 hours at the beginning of the game where they stopped you and tell you how to do moves. But at the same time, like, there's nothing wrong with going back and playing those things that you grew up loving and finding out new iterations of this.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome that there are games that are catering to a younger audience, and especially when they're like Kirby games and have depth to them. Like, you can play those games, and they're not hard to beat. You get to the end. You beat it, you feel awesome, there's a sense of accomplishment, but you can go through it again and say, like, make rules for yourself. Like, hey, I'm not going to fly. I'm not going to use this copy ability. I'm just going to, I want to get through without dying. And it gets very challenging. I want to find everything, 100% complete it. And usually there's an end game to new Kirby games where it's like, all right, you beat the game, here's a harder world that's made for, like, pros. And you get to play through that. I love it. I mean, as a father right now, like, Kirby games are one of the ones like I introduced really early. It's like, hey, here's something fun, like because like Terry was saying, like one of the things that puts Kirby apart is he can fly. You go right over obstacles. Like, oh, there's something in the way, I'll fly away. But it's still interesting the whole way through. Like there's just enough of a challenge to stay compelling and not be frustrating. And I think that's the best way to get people into games, like from a young age. Absolutely. I mean, and not just kids. Like, I think it's good for non-gamers. Like, I love bringing non-gamers into a Kirby game. Like, hey, let's play or two this. Let's go through it. And then they're like, oh, this is really fun. Like, I like playing with you, and we're now I understand games a little bit better.
I think that the part that you both kind of commented on that I respond the most to is depth. Like, just because its target is for kids, if someone still spends the time to like build the world properly, make sure the mechanics are tight, make inventive new things that you can do, and give it depth. We keep going back to how many powers there are. It blew my mind. If you do all of that, then it's enjoyable for anyone who picks it up, and it's you can learn a lot. There's something to be said for a game you can play with someone who's 7, who's excited all the time and is learning, and at the same time you're like, wow, that is pretty advanced stuff that they're pulling off here that's presented in this childish way. I mean, ultimately, you swap out all the character models to something more serious looking, and you can pass that off as a teenage game.
Now I'm just imagining Kirby looking like one of the villains from Double Dragon, Roper.
Oh, yeah.
So he just has like a bullet
giant
and a machine gun, and he's just like angry. But he's still a little pink puffball. He just has like angry eyebrows. Or angry eyes.
I think most of this, it comes from the aesthetics more so than the gameplay, because the gameplay is not dumbed down necessarily. It's still very complex.
Right.
It's just the aesthetics make it look very approachable, and I think that's great. Like, games should be approachable.
I think so too, and I think, honestly, if you're just getting someone into gaming and they're young, I would absolutely start on a Kirby game, especially now, because, not a lot of people are introducing their kids to the games from NES so that it's the same, whereas like all of them during that time were built essentially with a kid brain in mind.
Yeah.
Now it's very advanced. This is a great way to get anyone into gaming from a young age and to just give them a character who can mean as much to them as like Mickey Mouse or Mario meant to us. Like it's right there, and it's a great character, and I'm interested what they do when he shows up in Universal.
Oh,
Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that. Kirby?
Universal? Well,
the
Nintendo
World.
World. That's true. And yeah, I saw mostly like Mario stuff there, but Kirby would be interesting.
Is Kirby owned by Nintendo too?
Yeah. I can imagine like Kirby like bounce house, just to start. It's just Kirby. You go into his mouth and you bounce around in there.
Yeah, or a ride where you're like on and you're in the mouth, kind of like a Tilt-A-Whirl but with a Kirby mouth. Listen to us. We're giving you gold. But that's about all the gold we can give you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Please be sure to come to Tubby Robot in
beautiful Manayunk in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
That's right, where they will give you ice cream. You can look at these gorgeous designs behind us. You can talk gaming, and that's what this show is about. Keep gaming, keep talking gaming, and we'll see you next time. But first, Steve's final last-minute thing.
So, there's a Kirby villain named Waddle Doo. But what if Waddle don't?
Good night, everybody.